Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's session. We would like to thank everyone for taking the time to come and learn about Process NPD. So just some ground rules before we start. If you'd like to have any questions with regards to today's session, as the presenter, Mr. Ryan, is going to go through, please use the Q&A function within Zoom to raise your questions. The reason being is that by doing that, you will help us as the moderators to be able to keep track of all your questions and to ensure that your questions are answered today. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Mr. Ryan Jang, who's the Sales Director of SiQuest Technology, who will be sharing today's session about Process NPD. So Mr. Ryan, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Very good morning to everyone, and welcome everyone to this morning's session on STERIS Process NPD disinfectant training. But before I start, can I get a poll on what you guys do as profession, and are you currently offering disinfecting service to your clients, or are considering doing so? Or maybe you're just an end user interested to know in a new disinfectant. So Chris will send out a poll questions. I'll be grateful if you could just answer it. It'll probably take you 30 seconds to answer these questions. So I have a rough idea what are the profile of the participants and how I could cater my training to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, the poll's already up. Yeah. The poll's already up, everyone. On your Zoom windows, you should see a window pop up right now that says quick survey. So just take a minute to answer. Three quick questions here, very simple. So I think let's give everyone maybe a minute or two to answer before we close the poll. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, I'm closing the poll now. We've already 5 minutes into today's session. Actually, more than that, actually, 7 minutes in. So yeah, so without further ado, we'll just start today's session. Right. Thank you so much for answering. Yeah.
All right. Let's start. Chris, could you pull up the presentation?
Yep. Okay, give me a minute. Check.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Okay, I hope you realize that you are attending today's session is about STERIS Process NPD training. It is a disinfectant. And today I'm going to go a little bit in depth into this product. Okay, so
hang on, Ryan, can you give me a minute? Someone is asking, saying that he's asking you to check your volume. I think some people have trouble hearing you. I can hear you fine on my end. So maybe on your end, just need to boost that a little bit for someone.
Is it better now?
Hi, Mr. Aziz, is it better now? Can you just let us know if you can hear everything properly on your end?
Maybe would you want to turn up your volume, your speaker's volume?
Okay, I'm not seeing anything from him. Why don't you continue, Ryan? If anything, I will ping you separately within our chat to let you know if you need to do anything. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So the next slide. Chris. Okay, a bit of introduction for the manufacturer of Process NPD. STERIS is a global company headquartered in Mentor, Ohio. Okay, and with 15,000 employees worldwide and sales offices in 17 countries and dealers in more than 60 countries. It is a world leader in innovative decontamination and sterilization technologies, especially in healthcare and life science fields like pharmaceutical manufacturing. Steris also have manufacturing facility in 5 different countries, as shown on the slide. When we talk about leadership, because Steris basically introduced the vaporized hydrogen peroxide technology, it is a dry fog technology of highly concentrated hydrogen peroxide. It is widely used in government agencies where to decontaminate any infectious disease outbreak, and as well as level 3 biosafety cabinets and all that, right? And I understand in Singapore is one of the defense strategy for any potential biocontamination. So Steris is pretty much a leader in this field. The next slide will be talking about the history of Steris. Chris? Chris? Okay, so for the formulated chemistry division, Steris started in 1929 as a Vestal Laboratories, Inc. And along the way, probably like 50 years later, right, Calgon MSD acquired Vesta Labs, right? And several years later, Bristol Myers Squibb actually acquired Calgon Vestal from MSD, okay? And in a couple of years, it was spun off into Steris. Steris actually acquired this division and called it the formulated chemistry. So it has a very long history of almost 90 years, more than that. So the history is long and established. So Steris knows what they're doing. So you actually know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with Steris. The next slide. Okay. Steris has helped a lot of customers, okay? But majorly they are focused in the life science field, all right? In the pharmaceutical manufacturing, the vaccine production, drugs, right? As you can see on the chart, there are many well-known and well-respected companies who uses Steris service. And on a side note about vaccine vaccination, our government, the Malaysian government, has contracted 2 of the local producers, local manufacturers to fill and pack the COVID-19 vaccine pretty soon, as long as the overseas manufacturers have finalized their phase 3 trial. All right. So we are hopeful that the vaccine will work, and we actually work with the 2 manufacturers locally to ensure that what they're cleaning and disinfecting is doing it correctly. So we actually provide consultancy for these companies using Steris technology. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is a brief introduction to the Steris range of products, okay, in the formulated chemistry division. Of course, Steris has a lot of other products in the healthcare, in equipment, in sterilization equipment, but we are focusing on the formulated chemistry division, all right? These are the 3 main categories of Steris. The first one will be the controlled environment products. That will be the disinfectants, the sanitizers, the alcohols, the quartz, phenols, and sterilants to be used in production, as well as other institutions, right? Education institutions, right? Things like that that need disinfection, okay? Another part of the Steris formulated chemistry division will be the process research cleaners. These are the cleaners actually we're talking about to help these vaccine fillers, manufacturers to clean their tanks and all that prior to filling in and cleaning off the residues of the vaccines. Okay, and then the third would be the sterility assurance products. But today we're just going to focus on the controlled environment products. Okay, next slide. Okay, a very familiar pyramid. I think those who joined the training last week will be familiar with this. Okay, so this is a very typical pyramid for Steris products. They categorizes these products into various parts of the pyramids. Okay, we have the alcohols, right? Alcohols could be intermediate level of disinfectants, okay, as they are bactericidal. And the lower part will be the quaternary ammonium compounds, and the middle part will be the phenols, and the top part will be the sporicides. What this says is the efficacy of the biocidal efficiency of each chemical. But bear in mind that quaternary ammonium compounds, it is very formula dependent, okay? But generally speaking, EPA classify this as a low-level disinfectants. We'll talk about this later. Next slide. Okay, the US EPA disinfectant classifications. Excuse me. The EPA actually categorizes disinfectants into three levels. The first level will be the low-level disinfectants. By definition, they kill most vegetative bacteria, some viruses, and some fungi, but cannot be relied on to kill mycobacteria or bacterial spores. Okay. The second one will be the intermediate level disinfection. This disinfectant will kill vegetative bacteria, most viruses, and most fungi, but does not reliably kill bacterial spores. Okay. The third one will be the high-level disinfection, which completely eliminates all microorganisms except for a small number of bacterial spores. Why it is important to categorize in three levels? The EPA categorizes in three levels because it is mostly for the healthcare settings, because it will dictate what kind of disinfectants can be used on what equipments. Like for example, the low-level disinfection, you can sanitize or disinfect non-critical equipments, like that, things that actually don't enter into the body, like a probe, right? Furniture, right? And tables and chairs in the medical setting, okay? For intermediate disinfection is really for an assurance that this infectant can actually kill mycobacteria like tuberculosis, okay? Though it is very rare nowadays to see tuberculosis cases, but it is there, okay? On high-level disinfection, this is really to disinfect those critical equipments like endoscopes, right? The endoscopes that is very sensitive to heat sterilization, okay? Because endoscopes are soft plastics. You cannot go into a steam autoclave, okay? So next slide. Today I'm going to focus on the quaternary ammonium compound because that is what Process NPD is made up of, okay? But generally, what is quaternary ammonium compound? In its generic form, a QAC is an organic compound that contains at least one cationic, which is a positively charged nitrogen atom, often referred to as a quaternary nitrogen atom, okay? Quaternary ammonium compound is sometimes called a cationic disinfectant, okay? So further on, Chris. Yeah. And what are the functions of a quaternary ammonium compound? In short, we call them QACs. They are membrane active agents interacting with the cytoplasmic membrane of bacteria and the plasma membrane of yeast. The hydrophobic activity also makes them effective against lipid-containing viruses. QACs also interact with intracellular targets and bind to DNA. So in effect, what these statements talk about is it is a broad spectrum disinfectant due to its various properties, okay? It is effective against most bacteria and lipid-containing viruses, those are enveloped viruses, right? Because of their hydrophobic activity. They are effective against non-lipid containing viruses and spores, and it is very dependent on product formulation, right? On its own, quaternary ammonium compound might not be effective against non-enveloped viruses like norovirus, rotavirus, and bacterial endospores, okay? But when it's added with some synergies or surfactants or whatever, it will make the quaternary ammonium compound much more effective, okay? And also at low concentrations, at 0.5 to 5 milligram per liter, they are algae-static, bacteriostatic, tuberculostatic, sporostatic, and fungistatic. What that means is it does not completely kill these bacteria and algae, but they stop these algae and bacteria from growing, okay? It will reduce to a certain safe level, okay? But at concentrations of much higher concentration of 10 to 15 milligram per liter, they are microbial, they are microbicidal, and for these same groups, depending upon the specific organisms and formulations, okay? That means when you use quaternary amino compounds for the effect of disinfections, you need to use a high enough concentration to kill off the bacteria, okay? Next slide. Again, I've quoted this hierarchy of susceptibility. For those of you who might be wondering what is what, there's actually a hierarchy of different classes of viruses and bacteria. Occupying the bottom is the easiest to kill viruses and the vegetative bacteria, right? Enveloped viruses like COVID-19, coronavirus, right? Avian flu, flu viruses are really easy to kill if they are present on a hard surface. And occupying in the middle is the fungi, okay? Things like Aspergillus niger, okay, what we call the black mold. And occupying above is a much harder to kill bacteria called the mycobacteria, right? Tuberculosis being one of them, and non-enveloped viruses like rotavirus, norovirus, feline calcivirus. And occupying the top would be the bacterial spores, okay? Bacterial spores can be in any form, right? In certain hostile environment, when a bacteria find that they cannot survive, they cannot find enough nutrients on the surface, they actually sporulate, okay? The cells can actually divide, right? One half of the cells become hard shell, and they kind of become dormant, okay? And this kind of bacterial spores are very difficult to kill, right? And studies have shown they can remain on Earth or in the surface for hundreds of years, okay? Next slide. Okay, this looks very complicated, but I promise you this is the last complicated chart you'll ever see on my presentation. It shows a typical bacterial defense against antimicrobials, okay? As much as the antimicrobials want to kill the bacteria also want to resist getting killed, okay? There's always a lot of mechanisms the bacteria can produce to defend itself against the antimicrobials. Right, the first line of defense would be the biofilm. This is a polymeric substances that bacteria produce. Is a slimy gel kind of thing that bacteria produce that could cover themselves on a place that would actually neutralize the effects of antimicrobials. All right, but in open spaces, you seldom see biofilms, but you see in pipings, right, and in water tanks and things like that, because these places are harder to reach, and bacteria could actually form into a colony and produce a slimy covering, right, very slippery and jelly outer coat that could resist the the effects of antimicrobials. Okay, on the second line, actually, the bacteria has a cell wall, cell membranes, and encased efflux pumps, right? These cell walls could be against the antibacterial, like for example, non-viruses or mycobacteria. They have a tough cell walls, right, to break through. So various kinds of antimicrobials needed to be used to kill off these cell walls. Okay. And the third line would be the intracellular alternations. Okay, bacteria can actually mutate, right? Or they send out a neutralizing agent, like in the case of hydrogen peroxide, because of hydroxyl radical they produce to attack the cell membranes of bacteria. They could actually introduce a kind of neutralizing agent to neutralize the antimicrobials. Okay, so it's an ongoing war between bacteria and antimicrobials. Next slide. So going on back to what is quaternary ammonium compounds, as you might or might not be aware, quaternary ammonium compounds, there are various generations of quaternary ammonium compounds. The first generation is what we call single chain. I think a lot of you might be familiar. It's called benzyl chromium compounds. Okay, or it can be, it is also known as ADMAC, the alkyl dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride. Okay, this is a typical chain, the chemical structure of a single first generation QAC, right? And this is widely used, actually, until today. It is still widely used in the world, right? Even though it's not the most effective QAC you can ever find. Second, next page, Chris. All right. A brief description of what benzyl chromium chloride is also known as alkyl dimethyl benzyl, wherein the alkyl chain can have variations in the compositions of the carbonyl number chloride. Okay, that means preferably the carbon chain occupying for 12 to 14. Actually, the longer, the better, but typically it's 12 to 14 carbon, right? The longer, the better antibacterial power, okay? But this quartz, right, in short, emerged over 50 years ago, and it's one of the lowest biocidal activity quartz, right? But it's been used by the industry for so many years, partly because it's quite cheap, okay, easy to use, and but there's been questions of whether is there a bacterial resistance to the product because it's been used for so long, and if you use in a very little amount, that the bacteria could actually resist the antimicrobials, right? So in these days, it's still used in hospital and veterinary disinfections. It's used as deodorant. It is used in preservative like eye drops, right? Things like that. So next we go to the second generation. Chris? Second generations of quartz is also a single chain. It substituted benzyl chromium chloride. It's called ADIBAC, alkyl dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride, but it's no longer available commercially, so we don't talk about it. The third generation, Chris? The third generation is what we call the dual quartz, right? It's basically blends of first and second generation quartz of specific chain length distributions, okay? You could also blend with a single chain quartz with a polymeric quartz, what they call a polyhexanide, okay? These sorts of combinations have been found to be synergistic, such that enhanced biocidal activity is obtained with relatively lower toxicity. What that means is as the generations develop, you need to use lower and lower concentration because the biocidal activity remains the same as you use lower concentration. So when you use lower concentration, the toxicity profile of an in-use solution will become lower, okay? And then you go to the fourth generation, you'll see that you will use also an even lower concentration. All right. The fourth generation is what we call the twin chain. Okay, it's a dialkyl quartz, right? A DDAD or a C10-/C10. Or a didecyl dimethyl ammonium chloride, or didecyl dimethyl ammonium bromide, or dioctyl diammonium ammonium bromide or chloride, right? The advantage of this fourth generation quartz is that it will remain active in hot water and are tolerant to anionic residues. Remember that quartz is a cationic compound. It tends to get neutralized by anionic minus residues. Okay, so with this generation, it is a lot more tolerant of anionic residues, right? And also it has a stronger antimicrobial ability compared to their single chain predecessors. Okay, improved tolerance to anionic surfactants, protein soy, and water hardness salts. And they also have a lower foam behavior. And because you need to use so little of it, the toxicity profile is a lot lower than benzyl chromium chloride. Okay. So next will be the fifth generations. All right, this we're still on the fourth generations, what we call the twin or dual chain quartz. All right, typical names of that. Fifth generation quartz is actually a mixture of fourth generations and BAC and benzyl chromium chloride. So it's a fourth generation plus first generation to give you a fifth generation. Okay, so what that is, it enhances the biocidal activity of this compound. So you need an even lower concentration to be effective. Okay, and it is even better at tolerance to water hardness and soil load. Maybe yeah, in Malaysia, water hardness is not such a big problem. But in some countries where the source of water percolates through a layer of limestone and all that, the water would tend to be very hard. Okay, even if you make coffee or tea, it's very hard to dissolve the sugar and all that. Okay, and soil load, and it's low foam, and it presents a broader spectrum of antimicrobial properties. Okay, an example of fifth generation quartz will be a didecyl dimethyl ammonium chloride plus alkyl dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride, which is a benzyl chromium chloride. Okay, these solutions and mixture would present a much higher biocidal efficiency than first generation. Okay, next we're going to show you the differences in the different classes of quartz. Right, the performance comparison among different generations of quartz. Okay, this is a chart comparing the antimicrobial, antibacterial data for single or twin chain quartz. Basically a first generation, second generation, and a fourth generation comparison. Okay, the chart is showing you the minimum disinfection concentration as part per million of quartz. As you can appreciate, C10 is basically a fourth generation quartz, right? In killing a certain type of bacteria, like Pseudomonas aeruginosa, a C10 would require a little more than 400 ppm, while the add-back, which is the benzyl chromium chloride, you require 800. So almost half of add-back that you require for fourth generation, right? And similarly, the same results appears for this next type of bacteria. Okay. Next. And quaternary ammonium compounds is also a very good antifungal agent. Okay, you can tell from the chart that a fourth generation would always perform a lot better than the first generation benzyl chromium chloride. Okay, so for a little more than, for 600 ppm of fourth generation quartz, you are able to kill a fungi of Trichophyton metagrophytes, which is what we call the athlete's foot fungus. Okay, but for a first generation, you need a 1,200 ppm. Okay, what that means is also it presents cost savings, so you don't use so much of the material to kill a certain types of microorganisms. Next. This is a performance comparing the water hardness tolerance against first, second, and fourth generations. You can tell that a fourth generation C10 can withstand up to 1,500 ppm of calcium carbonate and is still active. Okay. For first generation, it can only withstand 500 ppm. Beyond that, the antimicrobial efficiency of the first generation quartz will be greatly reduced. Okay. So all these point to with each subsequent generations, you can see that the performance of the quartz become better and better, right? That's the whole reason why a new generation comes on. Next. And this is the various types of microorganisms comparing first generation, third generation, and a fourth generation quartz. It shows you the minimum amount of ppm needed to pass the test of killing a certain type of microorganisms, right? Again, you can see consistently the fourth generations perform better than the third generation, even though the third generation, you add some synergies in it, right? While the DDAC alone is good enough to kill. Especially you can tell on the A. niger, right? Aspergillus niger, the fungi. You can use just a little bit of DDAC is able to kill off. Okay, next. Right, this is a comparative log kill data for thermal fog formula. Right, for quartz, it can withstand quite a high temperature without changing its properties, and there's no risk that it would change in its behavior or corrosiveness, right? Especially when you're comparing with third and fifth generation quartz, these two charts is basically telling you that if you're using a thermal fog to kill a black mold, which is what Aspergillus niger is, if you're using a first generation plus synergist becomes a third generation, you can only kill a 0.4 log of the black mold, okay? For those who are not familiar what log reduction is, 1 log reduction is basically a 99% kill of a certain microorganisms or pathogens, okay? So basically all this data is showing more than 4 logs. 4 logs is basically 99.99%, more than 99.99% kill, okay? But surprisingly, you can tell that add back plus synergies, you can only kill less than 99%, right? 0.4 is probably 70% kill of the black mold, okay? So be very careful what kind of chemistry you use when you're offering a service to customers, okay? Especially when dealing with not only coronavirus and things like that, you know, black mold is prevalent in a lot of buildings, okay? If you're using a chemical to treat it, make sure you use a correct one, a more effective one, okay? Okay, I think, yeah. So this is another comparison between the viral inactivation. It's not a comparison, but viral inactivation of a 5th generation mixed quartz, okay? And this all follows the AOAC methods, which is under the EPA guidelines, all right? It's using 450 ppm of 5th generation quartz with 10 minutes contact time and 5% soil load, right? This is the 5% soil is actually a challenge to the disinfectants to make sure that they can actually perform well even with soil. Okay, that means a dirty surface. Okay, all this is showing more than 4 log reduction. That means 99.99%. And this is very closely linked. All these viruses are very closely linked to poultry farms, you know, all the farming areas. You see this kind of viruses. Chris? Can we have the next slide? Okay. Even better still, you have a 5th generation quartz. If you add some synergies, right? It could be a surfactants, it could be alcohol. It performs even better than using 5th generation alone. You can find all these viruses types, right? Even if it's enveloped or non-enveloped, you can find that the log reduction is a lot higher. So 5.5 could be at 99.99995% reduction, or 6 log reduction, which is a 99.99999% reduction, can be known as a complete kill. Okay, with influenza A. Of course, influenza A is quite easy to kill. That's why you get an 8 log reduction. Okay. Next. Okay, so we're going to introduce about the Steris Process NPD. Before that, I think there's going to be a quiz. All right. The quiz, the purpose of a quiz is to make sure if you guys are awake and listen to the training. And it's a very simple 3-question quiz. And those who have the highest score, as we go along, there'll be quizzes, right? Those with the highest score will be having a token appreciation, a little prize that I'll give to you guys, to the top 5 participants. Chris will send you a link to a quiz. I would be grateful you could actually fill in the quiz questions and submit the answers. Okay. Can you guys see the free online surveys? Link sent out on the chat box. And I would like you guys to answer these questions. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to answer these questions and submit the answers before I go on to introduce the Process NPD. Is that all right? And if you guys have any questions, you can send it on a Q&A right away that I can answer while you guys fill in the quiz. So if you don't mind, if you key in your name and email address and answer the first questions. So what was Sherry's?
Hi everyone, we will be taking a short break right now. So since you're still answering these questions, it's now 10:47. So please come back at around 10:55. So you can just take a short break right now from the social network. So in the meantime, just answer the quiz and all the best. Hi everyone, we're just going to take a short break right now since some of you are still answering the quiz questions. So the time now is 10:47 a.m. And we will get back to you at 10:55. So just come back at 10:55, we will continue the session. So in the meantime, good luck with your quiz. Thank you. Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's 10:55 a.m. So we're going to continue on with our session. So I once again pass the time back to Mr. Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, let's get back to what you guys came for. So let me introduce with you the Steris Process NPD, right? An EPA registered disinfectants, okay? So what is Process NPD? Chris, if I want to press again. Yeah. So Process NPD is a one-step germicidal detergent, right? Produced by Steris. It is a fifth generation quartz. Let's touch on what is a fifth generation quartz, right? And some synergies, okay? And in a typically EPA ruling, you'll find this is the label. What you're seeing now is a label of a Process NPD, right? In a typical EPA ruling, once you're registered with EPA, the ruling says you need to state out your active ingredients, okay, in percentage. It has to be accurate up to 2 decimal points. So that's a good thing of when you're choosing an EPA registered disinfectants. You actually know what you are getting, right? As opposed to locally produced one, you might not even know what is actually in there, right? So it is a germicide, it is a fungicide, it is a virucide, it is a detergent as well, and Process NPD is also a deodorizer in a concentrate form. Okay, so for EPA registered label, we can pretty much tell what is in the product, okay, and what is exact composition, and what is the EPA registration number. And with this EPA registration number, you can actually go to the EPA website. For those of you who might not be aware or know what EPA is, it's Environmental Protection Agency in the US. It controls pesticides and disinfectants. To them, by definition, disinfectants is also pesticides. Okay, in the case of Malaysia, is also the same. Okay, disinfectants is actually regulated by the Agriculture Department. Okay. So you can see from the label there is an EPA registration number. Okay. And what is the application of Process NPD? Chris, can we have the next? Right. Process NPD is actually used in a washable, hard, non-porous environmental surfaces. So it is a surface disinfectant. Okay. Bear in mind to differentiate between surface disinfectants as well as skin disinfectants and disinfectants on medical equipment. Okay, specifically EPA regulates surface disinfectants and not medical disinfectants. Those are regulated by FDA. Okay, and it is a surface disinfectant good enough for floors, walls, counters, tools, carts, and equipment in pharmaceutical, cosmetic facilities, as well as in food processing, preparation, and service facilities, or any facilities that require contamination control, It can also be used in animal husbandry, poultry and feed processing facilities. So it can be used in animal farms. It can also be used in veterinary clinics or animal research facilities or any other indoor facilities that need infectious contamination control or prevention. So the scope of usage is pretty wide. It is not designed to be used for medical equipment, however, okay? Next. So why do you choose Process NPD? Okay. First of all, it is quite effective, right? The quaternary ammonium compound active ingredients provide broad spectrum antimicrobial efficacy. So in the technical data sheet, you'll be able to see that all the bacterial claims and the test methods that's been used to test Process NPD with, okay? So the dilution rate used in this test is 0.4% volume per volume in a 400 ppm hard water and then in 5% blood serum organic residues test for 10 minutes. So for 10 minutes, it's able to kill all these microorganisms, bacteria basically, okay? And the next page also. It's a bit long, so I have to break it up to 2 pages. Okay. You can see this all these bacterial claims. It's also quite effective in treatments on hard surface against Pseudomonas aeruginosa at a concentration of 0.8%. Right, you use a slightly higher concentration for a particular bacteria. For fungicidal properties, you can use for 0.4% to kill trichophyton metagrophytes, which is what we call the athlete's foot disease. Okay, so it's also an excellent fungicidal fungicide. Next. It also has virucidal properties. All right, these are the list of viruses, canine distemper, canine parainfluenza, those in the vet or farm industry might be familiar with this, especially the Newcastle disease and all that, might be more familiar with this. But it's also effective against influenza A too. It is also, as you can see from the small print, it is effective against HIV-1. So for this purpose, it can be used as remediation for blood spills, right, in hospital settings. And next, it has a canine parvovirus effectiveness. Okay, that is a non-enveloped virus, right? If you use in a 1.6% dilution, you're able to kill that. Okay, so it's a matter of concentration, how much concentration you use to kill a certain virus. Okay, for coronavirus, it is expected, though there is no test data against it, but knowing that is a non-enveloped virus or lipid-forming virus is one of the easiest to kill type. If you use a 0.4% dilution rate, it is enough to kill this type of virus. Okay. Next. And also because this formulation contains surfactants for surface cleaning. So in the past, when we talk about how you actually sanitize, you need to clean the surface and sanitize it. Okay, it's a two-step process. But if you're using a Process NPD, it has a detergency as well as a disinfecting power. So basically, you just apply and just wash it. Okay, because of the detergent and surfactants inside the product, you actually don't need to do a two-step process. So it's become a two-in-one process. So one-step process, you just clean and disinfect at the same time. Okay, so that is one of the advantages. And next, it is a low corrosion factor. Okay, when you're buying from Steris, I always tell customers, you're actually buying the quality system of a well-known company. Okay, when you're buying something on the local market, you don't really know what this manufacturer is doing and what kind of tests do they do to ensure the product consistency and all that. So conversely, if you're buying from Steris, you're actually getting the quality that you're expecting from a multinational company, right? Steris actually do substrate compatibility studies, right, of Process NPD, okay, on their own product. Right? Basically what this studies is, I cannot show the whole page because it's such a huge page. If you're interested, you can just send us an email. You can send the substrate compatibility studies. It's basically studies that show Process NPD's corrosiveness on various
Hi, Ryan. I think we lost you on audio. Are you still there? No?
is an extreme case. You basically soak that piece of material, be it steel or all right, sorry guys, I was cut off temporarily. So what these results show for this substrate compatibility, all these materials are soaked in the solution, a diluted solution of Process NPD for 7 days, okay? And it shows that it has very low corrosion on the materials. The most badly affected is the aluminum. It shows a slightly darkening of the aluminum pieces. But aluminum is known to be a very prone for corrosion kind of product. So if you use bleach and everything, the whole piece of aluminum will be gone, okay? Okay, so the next slide. Okay, so material compatibility, as I touched on just now, of course, glass it will always survive. Okay, chrome, galvanized metal, stainless steel, porcelain, tiles, varnish surfaces, vinyl, linoleum, asphalt, rubber, terrazzo, concrete, and plastics. Okay, we test extensively on the surfaces that you usually find in any settings. Okay, that you usually find. Okay. Next. And also, when you're buying from Steris, you're actually buying the reliability and quality. We have a complete lot traceability, and we issue certificate of analysis for each lot, right? Typically, what you expect from the picture is the certificate of analysis. Again, it's one whole page. I didn't show. I just show you what it says, the product, the lot number 306101, when is it manufactured and when is the expiry date. And below that would be what kind of tests, what kind of test is being done. Okay, pH, the concentration of the quartz are done. Okay, so basically very few people will actually send you a certificate analysis. Okay, unless a very established company. Next. And it is a highly economical product, okay? One part is to 256 dilution rate, which gives you 0.4%. Only requires 20 milliliter, for example, of concentrate for a 5-liter solution. Let's say you want to prepare a 5-liter solution, you only need 20 milliliter, okay? And for those of you who purchase Process NPD, I think my partner would send a dispenser pump that will actually tell you how many ounces of concentrate is being dispensed as you pump. There's various levels, graduated levels, okay? What this comes roughly is about 2 ringgit 10 cents per application of 5-liter solution. So if you are doing a disinfectant service, right? As time goes on, the competitors might be more and more, and you're finding your cost is getting higher. So you might want to consider getting a more economical one, right? And because this is a 5th generation quartz, you need to use very little of it, okay, as opposed to benzyl carbon chloride. That's why you can achieve an economy with such a low dilution rate. Next. As good as its disinfecting power, this product is also a deodorizer, right? I've heard comments that can this product deodorize all these smells coming from dead animals? Yeah, this is a very good deodorizer as long as you spray it on the source of the smell, right? You can actually kill off the foul smelling. Right? Not only dead rats and cockroaches, but black molds. Black molds can smell quite bad, okay? Because it kills the black molds. Next. Okay, now I'd like to compare with various types of disinfectants in the market against Process NPD. Okay, what I see mostly in the market could be a hypochlorite, which is bleach, hydrogen peroxide, chlorine dioxide, all right, or even alcohol. Okay, some of you might be familiar with these chemicals. Are they all effective against COVID-19? I would say yes. All of them are effective against COVID-19. But what sets apart Process NPD, we will discuss later. Is it a broad spectrum disinfectants? Most of them are, okay, except hydrogen peroxide. It's very concentration dependent. And contact time, how short are their contact time, okay? Most of them are very short, okay, except hydrogen peroxide. And comparing the corrosiveness of it, we can tell that most are very corrosive, especially bleach, hypochlorite. You might not be aware, hypochlorite are very corrosive to stainless steel. Okay, you can imagine when a chemical can attack stainless steel, how corrosive it is. And as well as chlorine dioxide is quite corrosive as well. I'll show you in a few minutes. And hydrogen peroxide is quite corrosive and it's a bleaching agent. Okay, if you're thinking of spraying hydrogen peroxide in an office, make sure you cover all the soft furnishings and wooden furniture because it actually will bleach these furnitures and soft furnishings. Okay, and Process NPD has very low corrosiveness as shown in the previous studies by Steritz. I think when the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone was panicking and the only choice to use was alcohol. Perhaps a bit misinformed. Alcohol is effective, but it's not suitable for fogging because it presents a very high flammability factor, right? You could be using it and if there's a small spark and then the whole place will be burned down, okay? As well, it is quite corrosive in that it's not being corrosive, but you harden rubber and leather because it's a degreaser, okay? You draw away the oils from your skin. So leather is a cow skin. So If you have soft furnishings like that, you will actually destroy in the long term of these materials. Next. And going further on, what are the exposure that you can withstand? Okay, I'm drawing on a NIOSH limit, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Hazard. Okay, there are many limits. Okay, certain limits are, or what you call the NIOSH. You know, there's another institute that's coming up with the various limits. What I'm drawing on is a more reasonable exposure time. That means 15 minutes. Okay, if you're doing fogging service or fumigant service, a 15-minute exposure time is quite reasonable. Okay, and you must be aware what kind of limits you can withstand the chemicals. Okay, as you can tell, hydrochloride is pretty corrosive, and when you breathe in 0.5 ppm for 15 minutes, if you exceed that, you probably will suffer from some respiratory sickness. Okay. Comparatively, hydrogen peroxide is 75 ppm, is slightly better, a lot better. Chlorine dioxide is 0.3 ppm, okay, even lower than hypochlorite. Right? Process NPD is not established because due to its non-volatile nature. Okay, it's not a very volatile product, so there's no limit set for this product. Alcohol has a much higher limit, 5,000 ppm. That means you could probably be breathing a lot of alcohol and not get hurt. Okay. Another factor you need to consider is the cost effectiveness. Hypochlorite is a very low cost effectiveness product because you need to use quite a lot. Again, the same with hydrogen peroxide. Right? To be effective, you probably need to use 3 to 6%. And chlorine dioxide is very highly cost effective. You comparatively compared to bleach, you use a much lower percentage of chlorine dioxide. Okay, and again, Process NPD is also quite high, and it's very high in cost effectiveness as shown previously. And alcohol is very low cost effectiveness because for it to be effective, you need to use about 70% of the pure alcohol. Okay, and that's a lot of alcohol. And the rest of the chart, you can tell whether it's suitable for fogging. Bleach, definitely, I've never seen people bleach fog in bleach. Definitely not with people in there. Hydrogen peroxide, yes, I've seen people done that, but you need a much higher concentration. Chlorine dioxide, yes, I've seen people use it in fogging. And Process NPD, yes, it is indicated in the label that you can use for fogging. Alcohol, again, is not suitable for fogging because it is highly flammable, okay? And actually, if you're saturating the air with alcohol, you run the risk of burning the building down if there's a spark. Material compatibility-wise, comparing with all these chemicals, you can tell that hypochlorite is very corrosive to stainless steel. Hydrogen peroxide is corrosive to aluminum, brass, and copper. And chlorine dioxide is actually corrosive to aluminum, brass, and copper as well. But Process NPD material compatibility is excellent, as shown in the STERIS case study. And alcohol material compatibility is quite bad, right? It hardens leather, rubber, plastics, and rubber. Okay. Also, a note to see that hypochlorite actually is neutralized by organic matter quite easily. Okay. Organic matters like food crumbs, blood, things that is organic in nature can actually deactivate the biocidal activity of hypochlorite. Next, coming to the hydrogen peroxide, one of the disadvantages is it is highly unstable when exposed to air. Okay, it loses its efficacy quite quickly if it's not stored in a opaque plastic container or glass container. And chlorine dioxide, there is always a risk of producing toxic fumes. right? Usually chlorine dioxide, you mix it on the spot, right? You cannot actually store it in the bottle in a ready-to-use form, right? Because it loses its activity quite quickly, okay? While process NPD is stable, open bottle chemistry, even in use or in open bottle, okay? The concentrate when open is still quite stable, and when you dilute it, it is still stable for, I think this was 7 days. Of course, alcohol, the main risk is highly flammable. Next, please. Right. Here is showing sodium hypochlorite corroding the stainless steel. This is perhaps a stainless steel 304. Right, with repeated use, actually will cause it to rust. The reason for this is the chloride ions of sodium hypochlorite, which actually attack the protective layer of stainless steel, which is the chromium oxide. Okay, once that layer is being attacked and stripped off, the iron content in the stainless steel would surface and oxidize and cause rust. Right, rusty is because of the iron being oxidized. So repeated use of sodium hypochlorite would actually corrode stainless steel. Right, if you're going to use sodium hypochlorite as the only means of disinfection, I suggest after applying sodium hypochlorite, you need to wipe it with a wet cloth with water, right, to actually wipe off the residues, because sodium hypochlorite leave a lot of residues. Next. Next, I'm going to share you with a studies done by EPA itself on chlorine dioxide fumigation and hydrogen peroxide, what we call the vaporized hydrogen peroxide. Okay, this is a trial done with Steris VHP as well as a commercially available chlorine dioxide. Okay, these are the samples done by them, and all the various parameters that they observe. What they see is on IT equipment, this test is actually done to see if there is any effect on the IT equipment when you actually fumigate with different kind of chemicals. What they actually see is if you're using chlorine dioxide, the desktop computer, they will always find an internal powdery residues, right? Bear in mind, this is used in ppmv is the parts per million by volume, okay? They'll always find, when you're using chlorine dioxide, internal powdery residues, okay, on a desktop computer. And some computer monitor will actually change color if you're using chlorine dioxide, okay? As compared to Steris vaporized hydrogen peroxide, there's virtually no change, because this technology is dry fog technology, right? It does not cause any wetness in the IT equipment, right? Because if you're using chlorine dioxide, it needs to mix with water, right? So when you're spraying the chemicals, the equipment tend to be wet after a while, okay? And that leaves on the IT equipment without wiping. It will cause corrosion. Though I see a lot of people in the market will say chlorine dioxide is non-corrosive, it is food grade, you know, all kinds of claims without any backup of data. And these studies by EPA alone has convincingly shown that chlorine dioxide fumigation is corrosive. Next page. All right, these are the pictures shown. Okay, there is actually A, B, C, D pictures covered in 2 pages. All right, the picture A is shown fumigated at 3000 ppmv for 3 hours and show little corrosion, but computer B was fumigated for 750 ppmv for 12 hours. Okay, and the longer it takes will show that you begin to see corrosion on the blue arrow part on the back of the test computers. Next. Okay. This figure shows central grid on the backs of computers. A is not exposed to anything. B is exposed to 750 ppmv of chlorine dioxide. The corrosion is quite visible, as you can see the white powdery crust along the edges of the holes in the grid. Okay. Next. This figure shows the corrosion of PCI slot covers exposed to chlorine dioxide in 3000 ppmv and 750 ppmv fumigations. Also evident in number C is corrosion of the metal grids covering the back of the computer. Okay. So if you're doing fumigation service, be aware if there is IT equipment around, perhaps don't spray around IT equipment and use a wipe to wipe it off. Wipe the surface of IT equipment instead of spraying around. Okay. Next. All right, this is the power supply case. Again, picture B and C, you can see the corrosion is there. It's beginning to rust already. All right, you can see the screws are it's getting rusty already. All right, because chlorine dioxide is still a chlorine-based technology, and chlorine is very corrosive. It's a halogen. Next. Maximum 4 to 5 Yes. This is the back plate, all right, the heat sink actually. The heat sink of the process of the fumigation using chlorine dioxide. After a while, you can see the white residues again. So again, we are quite confident that it will work. Next. Is that the thing that is your plan? Because it is your procedure to have a plan B. Right. Computer CPU heatsink. A is not the previous picture. You can show the A, which is not exposed to chlorine dioxide, but you see C and D is actually quite bad. Actually, right? It's very severe corrosion using chlorine dioxide. Okay, next. So that ends a very short sharing of the process NPD from Steris, right? So with the various advantages of using a process NPD, and also with that economy of price in mind, I hope you can consider, right, this superior product in your daily dealings with your customers or for your own use, and you have the safe peace of mind that you're buying a quality assured, best price, and the name of Asteris. Okay, that would wrap up my presentation for today. And but before you go back, there's still another quiz that you need to fill in to decide on who are the winners for today's quiz. Chris? Sorry, just to clarify. Chris, would you mind to send up the quiz questions?
Putting a link into the chat window. Give me a minute. Yeah.
Okay. The thing is, it's not still not operated like that.
Okay.
If you guys have any
Windows
questions,
right now, please be there. Yeah.
Yep. There's a new link for the quizzes.
We have question now from the floor.
If any questions, can you type on the question and answer chat box?
Yeah, there's one, Chris.
Yeah, someone's asking, Mr. Abdul is asking, what is NPD actually? I'm not sure what he means by that. Maybe he's asking what it stands for. Yeah, Ryan?
Okay.
What is Process NPD actually? Yeah.
Right. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah. Maybe let me ask the person whether he can clarify the question. Hang on. Okay, everyone, I will also open the poll again that was done in the beginning, the survey. So those of you who haven't had a chance to answer that, you can also take your time to answer that right now. So we'll just give you a couple more minutes before we close today's session. All right.
Is there any other questions that you guys want to clarify?
Hi, Ryan. Someone's asking about Process NPD, about the how much per bottle and how can he purchase this? Okay. Hi, Mr. Muhammad Fazila. I think Ryan's away at the moment. So for the regards to pricing, I think I think look out for an email. I think after the talk today, there'll be some emails regarding the products that will go out. So just look out for that. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Are there any more questions? Keep them coming. Oh, okay. There'll be a marketing promo sending out to you guys, right, for the pricing and any promo that we have currently. I think there's a buy 3 bottles free one, and we're working with Harry of X-Way, and you also have like a buy 12 you get a free fogger kind of thing. This will be coordinated by X-Way. We do not sell directly to end users. You have to get it from X-Way.
Okay, I think that's it for today. So thank you everyone for coming today. The winners will be picked after today's session. So we'll go through all your answers, and then we'll pick 5 winners for today's quiz, right? So without further ado, I just want to thank Mr. Ryan for coming today and spending time with us for the last 1.5 hours to share with everyone about this new product, revolutionary product called Process NPD, which we hope you'll be able to use in your operations, which is safe and of course also more efficient in terms of how it can be dissolved and all that, right? So thank you, Ryan. Thank you again for sharing with everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks everyone for joining this session. I hope you have learned something.
Yeah. And okay, we will be sending out emails later with some information about the product, as well as any ongoing promotions that are happening. So do look out for that. Sometime over the next few days, there'll be communications going on that on various platforms. So please contact our partner, X-Way Bahad, who will be making all these things available to all of you. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop a line to us, and we can direct them to Mr. Ryan to answer any of you through his team over at SiQuest Technology. So thank you again, everyone, for coming. We hope you have a good day and a great weekend coming ahead, which is just another 2 days away. So thank you, everyone. Yep.